pesticides in the parks. Bring it on.
I think that was an invitation to you, Mr. Hamlin.
I'll take it. Just a little
I have
back.
the packet with me.
The packet has background. I just first wanted to give you all an update on the broader legal situation with the pesticide restrictions on private property. Oral arguments were held in the Court of Special Appeals, the county's appeal from the circuit courts voiding the law as it pertained to private property. Last Monday, I believe, or last Tuesday, the 11th. So we're kind of waiting now for the Court of Special Appeals to come back with its decision on the county's appeal of the circuit court's decision. That being said, we still have components of the Bill 5214 that did go into effect, which I think will be the subject of what we're hearing about today. We have DEP here to talk about what they've done since the enactment of the law. DGS can address any concerns about county property. And then we have Parks that has a PowerPoint and has a lot to say about the various things they've undertaken since the bill became law. So with that, I mean, we can just start with DEP.
I'm sorry, explain again. We're waiting for the Court of Special Appeals to agree to take the case?
No,
or
no.
to schedule when the case will come before them? Or
No, they had the oral argument
Yeah.
last Tuesday.
Okay.
So all the briefing and arguments are done. The
Okay.
case is in their hands now.
I see.
They will come back and decide whether to affirm or overrule the circuit court. And as is mentioned in the packet, it's very likely that the losing party on either side would seek appeal to the Court of Appeals.
Sure.
You're looking at a couple more years.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's also the Farm Bill, which you all are aware of.
What's the status of that?
I believe it's in conference right now, so it's still alive, and
And is the preemption language in one chamber and not the other?
I think it's just in the House. But that is, again, that's an issue that if that passes with that in it, could moot the whole thing. So basically, all of that to say, there are a lot of still balls in the air with regard to the county's private property restrictions. And if we continue through the state court system, best case scenario is it's going to be a couple of years. But there's the federal issue, and there's the possibility, as has been attempted before, that the state could act to do something either way, which would moot the legal stuff.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
Mr. Edwards.
Hi, I'm Stan Edwards with the Department of Environmental Protection, and I have Mary Travellini here with me, who is our program manager for our organic lawn care program. As Mr. Hamlin said, our provisions on the law now are largely the same as they were prior to the adoption of the law because of the legal challenge. And we've done some more enhanced education on organic lawn care, although there's not the mandate for organic lawn care. We have our website up here. We could go through that if you want, although I think I'm going to be challenged with this 1990s technology for the mouse here. But if you're interested in seeing what we have, I'd invite you to go to the website. Mary and our outreach folks have worked hard on getting something that's hopefully inviting and very informative about organic lawn care practices. There is information about the law there and the status of the law. But we're trying to encourage people to adopt organic lawn care, even though there's no requirement that they do so.
Tom, did you want to, excuse me, Tom, did you?
Sure.
You might be able to anticipate your question, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I guess we'll find out. It's my recollection from the hearings on the Healthy Lawns Act that before I was on the council, there was public education work that you all were doing, I thought, in the hardware stores and elsewhere to educate people about the proper way to use lawn pesticides, right before the Healthy Lawns Act passed.
Not specifically about lawn pesticides. There was
What was that?
There was and is a requirement about information about the dangers of pesticide use and about alternatives to pesticides. So that, as we've talked, that's why I was saying I can anticipate your question. Because every time we come before the council on this subject, People say, well, I was in a store, and I didn't see any information. And it continues to be a challenge for us, and we're working on different displays and things we can post in retail establishments, but it remains a challenge for us.
I wanted to make sure that was clear, that the legal dispute over the Healthy Lawns Act didn't obviate the need for that kind of public education to be happening, right?
Does not.
And it remains a challenge. How can we help you solve that challenge? Because I've never gone into a hardware store and seen any materials.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to think about how you might be able to help. It's just, as we've discussed in the past, it's challenging in a store where they have limited shelf space and they're moving things around and the staff changes, to know how to make the stuff that we put in there stay there for an extended period of time. So
That's
it's,
the issue? Like you put it in there and they remove it?
well, I don't know that they remove it, but it gets shoved aside and it gets pushed to the back of a shelf. And so we're trying to come up again with displays that might be more fixed to the shelving or something like that, so that it does tend to stay there longer, as opposed to a display rack that you put a card in that can be moved around. It's maybe something can be affixed to the shelf.
You have adequate resources for outreach and for material?
Our staff goes out to retail establishments on a periodic basis and checks to see if they're doing things, and if they don't have it, they provide them with the information. But it will continue to be a challenge for us because of the nature of retail. That's just the way those establishments that are selling these products operate. Staff turnover, inventory turnover, so.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry. That's helpful.
So again, we can go through the website. Again, we've focused here on organic lawn care practices. We go to public events all the time. We've created brochures about things you can do in the spring, in the summer, in the fall for organic lawn care. We take advantage of every outreach activity we can go to talk about our organic lawn care. Mary may have some thoughts you want to add here, but we've started an organic lawn care recognition program, so someone can go onto our website and say, I practice organic lawn care, and they give us a little information about what they're doing, and we'll send them a sign that they can put in their yard that says, my lawn is safe for your pet to roll around in, or your child to walk in, because we use organic lawn care practices. So anything we can do to try to convince people that it is an alternative that can still provide them with a reasonable lawn, we're pursuing.
Those lawn care companies that do organic practices, they could be certified as green businesses, right?
They could. And one of the things that we do is when we talk to people about organic lawn care, we advise them to talk to their lawn care company, because every lawn care company that I've talked to has an organic option. And so I know during the discussion of the law, there was concern about what this would do for businesses that are practice lawn care. And we always viewed it as an opportunity for businesses to provide organic lawn care services. And again, everyone that we've spoken with has that option. So we encourage people to talk to the lawn care provider, because they are experts in how lawns work and things you can do to maintain them. So we try to encourage that as much as possible. So we can walk through the website. I don't have a whole lot more to tell you, that pending the legal challenge that would dramatically, obviously, change the pesticide.
Sure. Roger?
Just a thought that occurs to me in the moment when we were doing recycling competitions in neighborhoods. That was very successful. And so I would just suggest to you explore the possibility of looking at neighborhoods and seeing if you can compete on how many neighbors have chosen organic, and then to allow neighborhoods to say we're among the most organic neighborhoods in Montgomery County. Thank you very much. And so I urge you to take a look at that, because it worked real well in the metal recycling. I remember the Tin Man.
I recall the recycling smackdown, yes.
Yeah, so, there are other ways to make this happen.
Right.
Question. So I'm just looking on my phone at the links there on why switch to organic lawn care, and you list a number of benefits. You don't say anything at all in that segment about the risk of pesticides. Do you feel that that's not something you're comfortable talking about, or that you don't feel it's sufficiently documented, or? I mean, for example, you just said this lawn is, you have a sign that people can put up that says, this lawn is safe for your pets and your children. But there's nothing on your website that indicates that pesticides are any hazard to pets or children. So what, I guess, do you not feel comfortable communicating a message that pesticides are a hazard?
That's a great question. I would say that most of what we focus on the website is that pesticides are not even something that needed to be considered in the first place. So everything we mention on there is how to take care of your lawn without saying what's good and what's bad. We just say what's good. So we're taking it from the approach of you didn't even need to consider it in the first place, so we're not going to take a position on that. It's difficult sometimes to come up with language and also to avoid the negativity around where somebody else is going to contest you. So we just share, you can do all of this and this is how you do it, as if you were in the 1920s taking care of your lawn. So it's just really, we treat it as we're not even going to mention them and don't want to take a position where people start to create controversy with intervening with us. What about this? What about that? What about this type of pesticide? You know, what about the organic materials? We don't even mention the organic materials on here.
Doesn't the same risk exist with respect to these signs? Might not someone contest that someone else's lawn is safe for children and pets?
Yeah, I think they might. I mean, it's not like we're going to always avoid the issue. There are going to be people that say that pesticides are safe, people that say they're not. And I think, as Mary says, we're trying to emphasize the positive in this information about how to care for your lawn organically. So I'm sure there will be things on there where we do talk about the pesticides, and I mean, the implication is that pesticides might not be as safe as practicing organic, but as Mary said, we're trying to accentuate the positive in what we're doing here and not even talking about pesticides.
So where, as I'm glancing at your slide and I'm glancing at my phone, where on DEP's website is Bill 5214 described?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to try to get there with
There's
this.
4 boxes if you're on your phone, and
Okay.
the lower left box is where we mention the law.
Sorry. The lower, a county pesticide law, I see it, okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Under laws
So,
and
yeah.
regulations.
Now I can click over there. So then we talk about the pesticide law and the state fertilizer law. And there's information on there about the stat. Well, there is information on there.
Yep, I see it now. And was there some decision not to refer to it as the Healthy Lawns Act? Did you explicitly decide not to call it that?
I don't know that that's what it's called in the law. I don't see any language about that. We've had that conversation with people before. There's no statement in the law that that's what it's called. So for some people, that's a pejorative term, and we are staying away from it.
Pejorative in that other lawns are not healthy.
Right. And because the law doesn't say this, some legislation says this can be referred to as X. This law did not say this can be referred to as the Healthy Lawns Act, so we're, again, trying to stay out of the debate about whether it should be that or not.
Okay. Right, let's turn to the Parks Department then. Should we do that? Mr. Riley?
Okay, it's Mike Riley, Director of the Parks Department. It's great to be here with you this afternoon. We're here to demonstrate to you the steps that the Parks Department has taken to comply with the pesticide bill. I brought with me today 2 of my division chiefs who manage the operations and maintenance of the park system. To my right is Doug Ludwig. He is the division chief of Northern Parks, which is the larger up-county part of our county, which tends to be more suburban and rural. And then next to Doug is Bill Tyler, the division chief of our Southern Parks, who manages a smaller area, but arguably more intense and more populated in the down county. So I thought it would be best you hear about our efforts directly from them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Doug.
Thanks, Mike. For the record, my name is Doug Ludwig. I'm the chief of Northern Parks, and I'm going to see if I can figure out technology. Oh, look at me go. The Montgomery Parks pesticide program includes the following components: pesticide-free parks pilot, pesticide-free playgrounds, develop usage protocols to reduce pesticides, public outreach and notification, reporting, and a playing fields pilot. We will review each item to showcase how we are addressing each one. First, we'd like to do a quick overview about the types of pests in parks and the reasons we have to manage them. We have 3 kinds of pests: insects, pathogens, and weeds. In the lower left-hand corner is the emerald ash borer. In the lower right-hand corner is a tree destroyed by the emerald ash borer. And in the upper right corner is an example of grubs destroying turf, which can be either in athletic fields or in lawns. The same occurs in both. Plants get sick just like people do. These are examples of sick plants and turf. Okay, in the lower left-hand corner is thistle. In the middle is Carolina horse nettle. And on the right is an example of weed competition in athletic field turf. There are numerous reasons we manage pests in parks. These are examples of the many reasons why we manage pests in parks. And now we'll go over different components of our pesticide program and how we are addressing each one. We've successfully implemented the pesticide-free parks pilot in 10 parks, including the one pictured, which is Clarksburg Village North Local Park. We have pesticide-free parks distributed throughout the county. Each park has a unique environment and different amenities which present different challenges. Over the 2 years of the pilot program, we've identified some common challenges, such as weed removal in cracks in pavement, fence lines, tree rings, and signposts. The presence of weeds may cause longer-term impacts to infrastructure, such as quicker deterioration of paved surfaces and shortening lifespan of trees. And we are evaluating the need for more staff and additional equipment to address weeds which are not being managed with pesticides. Pictured in the upper right-hand corner is an example of weeds in the cracks at Spencerville Local Park. We've identified some strategies to address... Excuse me, sorry.
Madam Chair, should I break in with questions or hold my questions till the
Go
slides
ahead.
are done?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Could we go back to those weeds?
sure.
Would not a 15-minute visit with a weed whacker address those?
It will. That's just one of the challenges that we face. The challenges are being addressed, and in one of the future slides, we go over some of the strategies that we're using to address those.
But if you did a deep coating with glyphosate, it would wash away and weeds would still grow. So, I'm not, is it,
Spencerville is one of our pesticide-free parks, so that's the way we are doing it. We're doing it either
understand.
with a propane flame
Yeah.
torch, or we're doing it with a string trimmer.
right, it appeared from the presentation that you were saying that the lack of use of pesticides is creating problems, and so
No,
I'm
we're just,
understanding how you're
we're,
managing.
the challenges, we've addressed challenges that we faced as we're changing our program in these parks in particular, as we move from a program where we used pesticides to one where we're not. We've identified many challenges. The weeds and the cracks are just one of them, and then one of the strategies that we use, which we'll go over several, is string trimming, like you mentioned.
So the weeds in the cracks, that's a vivid image. How would a non-pilot park prevent that from occurring? This is a pilot park.
Well, this
is a
occurs-
pesticide-free
the
park.
crack, the
In the
weeds-
pesticide-free park, weeds are growing up in the cracks.
They grow up in the cracks in all parks. In pesticide-free
Indeed.
parks, we don't address them with pesticides, so we're addressing them with more mechanical means. In the other parks that aren't pesticide-free right now, one of the tools in our toolbox is to use pesticides to address those weeds.
Yes, I'm following you. So there's no reason to think that a weed whacker is less effective than Roundup.
It's just a matter of the labor.
So you get weeds either way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the labor you'd have to follow along and spray.
Weeds are going to grow regardless, just because of the seed bank in
Yeah.
the surrounding environment. So there's multiple ways to address them depending on which park setting you're in. And if you use a pesticide product, which we had done previously, it's less time consuming,
Why?
because it takes less time to spray the weeds once and have them not be there for several months, as opposed to having addressed the same spot weekly with a string trimmer. So you may spend
The use of Roundup will obviate the need to weed whack a few times.
for several times, typically anywhere from 2 to 4 months.
Whereas
So you're saving for that
in the
particular.
growing season, the weeds would grow up during those 2 to 4 months.
Yeah, between March and the end of October or early November, depending on the particular year, you get weed growth during that 8 or 9 month period. So you address it 2 or 3 times if you use a tool such as a pesticide versus treating it or addressing it 34 different times, which would be weekly when you're in the park with a string trimmer or something else.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we've identified some strategies to address these challenges, including using cement surfaces in areas where it's difficult to weed, such as under trash cans, benches, and along fence lines. Where possible, we're reducing or eliminating mulch tree rings and unnecessary signposts where weeds gather. And we're looking at increasing staff time for manual weed removal. The next component of our program we have addressed is implementing a pesticide-free playground. We have 275 pesticide-free playgrounds. This requires a lot of work, staff time, equipment, and may create longer-term impacts. Parks did receive funding for this, and we have successfully implemented the program, although there are ongoing challenges. I would note out of those 275 pesticide-free playgrounds, 251 have engineered wood fiber surfacing, 18 have artificial surfaces, and 6 have mixed surfaces, which is a combination of the engineered wood fiber and artificial.
Can I go back to the issue of weed maintenance? As I understand it, the parks were operating under integrated pest management. That was the philosophy.
Correct.
And what little I understand about that is that pesticides are only supposed to be used as a last resort. But it sounds like in those parks that are not pilot parks, you're just routinely using Roundup because it's quicker and easier. That doesn't sound like you're using it as a last resort.
I would say that it is a tool in our toolbox. It's not the first option, and we look at what options are available to us. Many managers have gone to the flame weeding with propane torches. It takes quite a bit more time, but we're finding it to be effective in some situations. We're learning as we go.
So you use propane in the non-pilot parks as well as the pilot?
We're trying in several different applications, yes, sometimes at ball fields, sometimes at stormwater management facilities. We're not restricting ourselves to trying new things only at the pesticide-free parks. We're trying it in all different situations to see where it will be effective so we can begin to implement it. It is our goal, not to use pesticides as our first tool and only tool. We look to protect the environment and to protect the people that use the parks as well.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see where I am here.
So with respect to playgrounds, basically what you've done is you've eliminated organic growth.
We've hired staff, yes, that goes
Yeah,
around
that's
and
okay. I'm just-
manually, yep.
So nothing that weeds can grow from.
Yeah, they're manually pulling weeds, and they're visiting those sites on a regular basis to continue to pull weeds throughout the growing season. Engineered wood fiber provides a cooler playing surface and is permeable. It does require frequent maintenance, such as raking, replacement, weeding, and as the wood fiber breaks down over time, replacement. The playground that's pictured is North Four Corners Local Park. And as a side note, we recently learned through our Smart Parks team that we have just north of 1.2 million square feet of engineered wood fiber in our playgrounds, which is equivalent to roughly 21 and a half football fields that we're maintaining with those staff.
But how is that relevant to the use of pesticides?
I would say that that's 1.2 million feet of surface that we're no longer treating with pesticides.
Is that like a hard surface where the engineered fiber doesn't come out?
The engineered wood fiber looks like mulch, but it's engineered in a way that it doesn't break down as fast as like the double shredded hardwood mulch that you put in your landscape beds.
What is a loose substance?
So it is loose, correct. Okay. Some of the ongoing challenges include common Bermuda grass, which invades fast during hot summers. Root pieces grow new plants. And we're finding manual weeding of this type requires extra staff and time.
That stuff is killer.
And this is Jessup Blair Local Park. Yes, it is.
Is Blair a pilot park?
That's in your region, Bill.
I've noticed the weeds, that's near my house. I noticed there's a lot more weeds there. Maybe it's a pilot park.
You have to excuse. I'd have to go back through my slides here to see.
It's all right.
Okay.
The answer is no. Jessup Blair is not one of the pilots.
Thank you. Some strategies to address these challenges include the use of handheld tools as one strategy to maintain playgrounds without pesticides. We are also working to include borders at all playgrounds to prevent encroaching weeds. Now I'll hand it off to Division Chief Bill Tyler.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Tyler, Division Chief for the Southern Region. And I'd like to start by saying that we have really positive news that we've reduced the use of pesticides by about $15,000 in our parks that we are piloting now. So I think that's really good news to start with. The usage protocol reduction in pesticide use. Let me get to that screen. There we go. All right, if you look on your screen, you'll see that we have in our pesticide-free parks amenities that we've listed. And with those amenities, we have strategies that we use to reduce weeds in our parks. But some of the most common ways that we do that is by a weed bar, which was created by one of our staff in one of our maintenance facilities and one of our highly trained staff. And we also are able to remove weeds by raking. And we also are now implementing concrete pads that we place our recycle bins and trash cans on so that it helps to mitigate the growth of weeds. And it also helps with our accessibility, compliance for accessibility for those that need accessible ways to get to our trash cans. Other alternative uses or means is flame weeding, string trimming, and biological control release in our conservatories, and we also use...
What is that last one, biological control release?
Yes, biological control releases. We're working with the University of Maryland, and it is, we have what they call a mile a minute weevils that go in and actually attack other pests. So we're working with the Department of Maryland Agriculture to work that program through. It's also 1,000 weevils that we put into place at the Little Bennett, and we've seen them as far as Sligo, so they're helping to mitigate the nuisance of pests.
Do they just eat the grubs, or do they work on weeds also?
Well,
What do the weevils do?
well, the weevils, as I understand it, actually eat the pests.
The grubs,
Yes,
the animal pests?
Right.
Or insect pests?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
We also have trained staff in pesticide applications, professional fertilizer applicators, and certified playground inspectors. We also have staff that are members of the Sports Turf Managers Association. It's a highly regarded turf think tank in many of the turf management worlds that help us to develop some of the protocols that we have now for turf management.
So I'd like to ask about that. So how would you describe the ethic of these staff? I would assume that if someone goes through the trouble of being certified as a pesticide applicator, that person may not see his or her role as diminishing the use of pesticides. Am I wrong?
Oh, yes, sir. Quite to the contrary. Our staff is really about what is protecting the environment. And if that is something that we would go to as a toolbox, as a tool in our toolbox, they wouldn't have any concern with that. They are really focused on what's best for the user and for the community, Montgomery County community.
And I should have added when I introduced Bill Tyler that we have an interdisciplinary team within the department that meets regularly, that produces the semi-annual reports we send the council, and Bill leads that team. So, I mean, it is not the applicator deciding what we do, it's the management of the organization.
Mr. Tyler, you said a little while ago that you were decreasing the expenditures on pesticides. Do you happen to know the total expenditures on pesticides by the Parks Department?
I do. And for fiscal year 15, we spent $25,181, and for fiscal year 18, $10,318. So a fairly significant reduction.
More than 50%.
Right.
Is that because it got cheaper, or
Less use.
are you using less?
It's using less.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to ask.
Absolutely.
Is that in the packet, those numbers?
No, sir. No, we can provide that for you. The next component is the public outreach, notification, and reporting. We believe that we have done a very effective job at communicating with the public. From the very beginning, Montgomery County Parks developed, and let me get to that. There we are. All right. From the beginning, Montgomery County Parks developed and executed a comprehensive outreach campaign that included distributing a press release to the media, creating an online resource page, social media informational campaign, and email outreach to key stakeholders. Our ongoing efforts includes regular updates to the webpage and continual communication to the public via social media. We've created a webpage. MontgomeryParks.org has a dedicated resource page outlining the pesticide reduction and IPM Integrated Pest Management Program. The web page is updated weekly and includes the pesticide application notification grid that lists the location, date, time, product, and reason for applications that require pre-notification. We also have on that web page our semi-annual pesticide report, a list of the pesticide-free parks, frequently asked questions, and contact information for the public should they want to have more information about our program that's not listed on the website. Notifications. You'll see that there's a yellow sign and a white sign. The yellow sign is placed 48 hours prior to the pesticide being applied to athletic fields or managed turf areas, and within 25 feet of stream or valley, stream or creek, excuse me. The yellow is a State of Maryland Department of Agriculture required sign that is placed at the time of application and is left for at least a minimum of 48 hours.
Question about that?
Yes.
I was at a Little League game last weekend. I saw one of those. I don't quite get the guidance here. It says no children on that little yellow sign. But I'm at a park and it's, everyone's playing Little League. I don't know when that was applied. I didn't actually look at the date. Do you shut the park down for 48 hours, or do you just put the yellow sign out and help? What do you do?
Well, we put the sign out in hopes that people will recognize that we have made an application and that they will stay away from the park. We do not close the park down officially. So we hope that that warning is a warning that would indicate to them that they really shouldn't use that park at that time if they're concerned about the application.
The problem with that, Hans's point, I think, is that you don't know when it was done. It might have been done 4 days ago. The park, this happens with people's yards all the time. Someone comes and applies something,
Well, there's,
and then,
Date on it?
yes,
The date's on like the
Yes.
back or something?
yes, the date
and how long is that effective for?
for 48 hours.
48 hours.
But-
Well, it should say that then.
Yes.
Or better, the sign should be removed if you deem
Ideally.
it's no longer a hazard.
Okay, all right.
That would be
Perfect.
That would be useful, but.
Very useful.
Assuming that it's not, staff-wise, that is a part of the confusion.
Okay,
Because then people say, it's not meaningful.
sure. Okay. All right. Reporting. Reports are submitted to council January 15th and July 15th, and they are also available on the montgomeryparks.org. The final component of the program is the athletic field pilot program. 10 multipurpose fields and local parks have been selected in pairs based on hours of permitted play, ball field collected data, and visual, get to, yes. On visuals of the field, 5 fields will be maintained by organic or listed products, and 5 fields will be maintained using conventional products. The National Organic Standards Board, it recommends the organic and listed products, and those are products that are considered to be safer for the environment.
Which fields are they?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the list of the 10 ball
Yes,
fields?
we do. We can provide that list for you. Measurable parameters in the pilot: playability level, soil hardness, density of turf, insect damage, and cost. And that basically boils down to how inviting and comfortable and safe are the fields to play on as far as the playability level is concerned. Soil hardness is really one of those areas that we would be concerned about. It would add to the ability to have runoff. If the soil is too hard, it doesn't seep into the grass as it should or into the soil. Density of turf, it would be important because we want to make sure that the turf is soft and playable and also adds to safety of users on the field. Insect damage can cause turf to be slippery, causing, again, people to not feel comfortable on the turf. The turf is just kind of pulled up away under your feet, so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And then, of course, cost to the budget, the budget impact.
So for each of those bullets, the one that I'm finding the hardest to understand the linkage to pesticide use is soil hardness. Why would soil hardness be affected by organic rather than pesticide treatments?
Well, I'm not sure that it would be affected. It's just one of the parameters in which we believe is important to measure as we are having this pilot program. So soil hardness is one of those areas that would be in the pilot program. Did I not answer your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I understand that there are a number of conditions that determine whether a playfield is usable and desirable. And I understand that you're measuring each of those.
Right.
And I can understand why playability would relate, if there were weeds in the grass, it might not be playable. Density of turf, same issue. If the weeds are killing the grass, you wouldn't have density of turf. Insect damage explains itself. Cost, I understand. So each of those I can see that you're testing a parameter that might be reasonably affected by the use or non-use of pesticides. The only one I don't understand is soil hardness. I don't see why soil hardness would be affected by the use or non-use of pesticides.
I can ask someone to come up and speak to that if that's okay.
I'm guessing, without knowing for certain and without being an expert, that soil hardness relates to the use of the field itself, that the more people who run on it, the more compact the soil becomes.
Well, that is true. Yes, that is true.
It's useful to know in comparison to artificial turf too, because that's one of the criticisms of artificial turf is the hardness. So it'd be nice to have an inventory of natural surface.
Good afternoon, Cliff Driver, Montgomery Parks. Just to speak on the compaction issues in relation to turf grass, a perennial healthy turf grass will help a soil resist compaction to a fibrous root system, where a barren soil will compact much quicker. It's just the ability for the root system to be able to help hold that soil structure in place. So we included compaction on there because of the safety concerns with head injuries and other injuries for children.
So I apologize if you spoke to this earlier, but there has been conversations in the past that there are new grasses being developed that work in the mid-Atlantic area such that it works just as well as artificial turf. Do you have any sense with respect to that? And that I thought we were also
And have the
testing that,
expert-
were we not testing that as well to see whether or not?
We could not be more excited about the experiences we are having with Bermuda grass. We are converting cool season fields, cool season grasses like bluegrass and tall fescue, which are historically what are on our fields, do well in the spring and the fall when it's cool. Bermuda grass loves heat and humidity. It just thrives on it, and it takes much better foot traffic. And the reason this Bermuda grass has been around forever, but the reason that we're very excited is the newer cultivars, is the fancy word for the strains or types of bluegrass, are surviving our winters better this further north. So you don't have to rebuild the field completely in each season like you had in the past with the old Bermuda grass. If you want to see a work of art, please drive by North Four Corners Park right now. It was renovated this summer. And another beauty of Bermuda grass, and this is going to play huge in our interactions with the school system, is that you can actually do the renovation work in the summer. You can shut down a field in June and potentially have it back up in September, where with the cool season grasses, unfortunately, the best time to do the work is in the peak playing season. It's September, October, November. So we could not be more excited. The answer to the question, can it withstand the number of hours and the same strains as synthetic turf? I don't know that we're ready to commit to that, but we're certainly trying to get there.
Good for you.
And so if you're excited about this strain of grass, are you testing it in the different pilots with respect to pesticide use?
We try to find 10 fields that were all the same.
So they're not
all
Bermuda
10
grass.
fields currently right now are cool season grass. We have such a limited number of Bermuda grass in our system as it currently stands that we didn't have a large enough sample size to include Bermuda grass in there at this point.
And so where you have it, you're administering pesticides to it?
As it stands right now, yes, sir.
Do you want to add anything more?
Yes.
Yes.
I think there's one slide left.
Okay.
All right, the one slide left is the RFP will be advertised in September of 2018. The contract will be awarded in January of 2019. Pilot is to begin in March of 2019, and we should have useful data fall of 2019, and we'll update council periodically. And I'd like to just close by saying that we are feeling that we've gone beyond in a couple of areas in the law, and that we're moving forward to be pesticide-free in the parks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tyler. Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Thank you, DEP. Sounds like we've had a full and frank discussion. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's let someone else, George,
course.
for a second.
Yeah.
Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for coming. This is really helpful. And thank you for, as you said, Mr. Tyler, moving toward pesticide-free parks. I think we want to do everything we can do to help you get there as quickly as possible. And I think that was the clear mandate of the council when we passed the Healthy Lawns Act. I think I missed the details on your spending. You said it was $25,000, and was that FY18? And then around $10,000 in FY19? 2015?
Yes,
And
10,000.
in FY, sure,
FY18.
18, okay, which is over, okay.
Yes.
Do you have any purchase orders pending in this, or do you feel like you're sort of spending down your current stock and going to maintain a very low level of spending now?
I think we're trending downward. At this point, we're not heading towards elimination, but because we buy pesticides for things that are outside the current law, like non-native invasive plant treatment.
Right. And you probably followed the Superior Court case in California.
Yes.
We all sat here in 2015, I guess it was, and I remember hearing testimony that glyphosate was very safe. And when we heard testimony from folks without a conflict of interest saying, you know, they thought it very much it wasn't. The court found that the glyphosate had caused the cancer of the groundskeeper in California, Dwayne Johnson. The jury awarded $289 million. I got to say, I'm glad you're slowing down the use of your pesticides. When I just received the list of all your applications in the last year, I got to say I'm sort of shocked. There's still, despite, I guess, the spending is down to 10,000 or so, that still amounts to hundreds of applications each year. Now that we know this about glyphosate, can we just say you're going to stop using glyphosate?
I did follow the court case, not in detail. Obviously, it's new information that sheds light on, you know, how we look at that product. But, you know, as of today, we're using it in various applications, as was discussed earlier, to control labor costs primarily, of other methodologies to deal with the pest. So if you want us to come back and say what that would look like or what that would mean, we certainly can work on that.
Well, I'd like to see that personally. I'm sure you're as concerned as I am about exposure by parks staff and by parks users, and the matter is relatively settled now. So I would think it's a lot harder for us to explain why we're continuing to use glyphosate. And I'm wondering, Mike, if you've consulted with the county attorney about what the county's liability looks like if we have our own cancer cases in Montgomery County from park staff who have used glyphosate for many years.
Or users.
Or users.
No, I have not consulted with any attorneys.
Given this new environment, I really think we should, you know, move to ending it as quickly as possible.
Okay,
Did Parks Department retain, oh, I'm sorry, I'll wait, yeah, when's my turn?
Just to follow up on Mr. Hucker's excellent line of questioning, I think it would be appropriate for us to request that you seek legal opinion with respect to the liability that the county could face given the California case decision, and that could create a context in which it's a lot easier for you to justify increasing labor costs versus a potential liability of hundreds of millions of dollars.
well, it wouldn't be just the Parks Department.
We're living with
It would
some
be-
weeds, but we can no longer claim ignorance.
Right. So I do urge you to request legal counsel's opinion as to the liability, potential liability that you and anybody who uses this in the county would face as a function of that.
Okay,
We'll
George?
do that.
Thank you, sir.
Did the Parks Department retain Chip Osborne as a consultant on organic lawn care?
Yes, sir, we did.
And what's the status of your contract with Mr. Osborne?
It is active. We are using his plan now, that we are creating the RFP that will be going out in September.
And did he initially study one pesticide, or has he been studying all the pesticides that you use?
Oh, he's taken a look at all that we use and has given us a plan to move forward, pesticide-free, and that's a plan that we will be putting in the RFP. So yes, he did look at all of our pesticides.
And the RFP is for organic lawn care? What is the RFP?
Well, the RFP is going to measure the effectiveness between conventional and organic listed products. And Mr. Osborne has given us a plan, and we've also gotten a plan from another expert in turf management.
But the pilot's already underway, testing organics versus the pesticides
No, sir.
at several different locations.
Right now, we have a RFP that we're going to put on the streets as mandated by the law. And that Mr. Osborne had given us a plan for that.
But earlier in your slides, you indicated that there already were parks and playing fields that are being evaluated under organic gardening. You have a pilot underway now, you just briefed us on it.
To be clear, there are 10 full parks that are pesticide-free, which is, I consider a pilot. We have to evaluate, and we reported a little bit on what that means. The playgrounds are all pesticide-free.
Right.
This particular component is very specific in the law. It says that we will do a pesticide-free pilot on 5 existing playing fields. So what we did is consulted with Chip Osborne on the specification for those fields that will be maintained organically. And we will use his expertise to craft that specification. We used another consultant's expertise for the 5 fields that will be maintained under an IPM basis. So the purpose, this is a scientific experiment to us. The purpose of this is to be able to come back and say, these were the results of the 5 organics, these were the results and costs of the 5
understand.
IPMs, and then use that as data for the council to make decisions going forward.
So that will be a more carefully controlled study than the one that's already underway that you already briefed us on. You already briefed us on results in parks that are
Yes.
being managed organically.
And as you can imagine, the variables are incredible in this. It really does need to be set up very scientifically so that the data and results we report back to you are meaningful.
Yeah.
And we will have in addition to the vendor who will actually be doing the field work and maintenance, we will have an independent third-party consultant observing that to make sure that all the data is collected is per our RFP.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, and we wish the next council well in following up. It's up to you, Tom and Hans. Yep. You're in charge of the next one. Bicycle master plan, that's, I know. Cyclist. But I'm the cheap date on that.
I think I'd like to be better as a biker.
I'm becoming a biker.
Little tattoo, biker, little leather jacket, leather pants.
Be good luck. My father was.